red carpet will roll out tomorrow for the royal visit of Prince William and his wife Kate, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. The photogenic royal couple will touch down in Victoria with their two children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, for a tour of British Columbia and the Yukon. It is an honor to have the Governor General, David Johnston, joining us here in studio with a preview of what we can expect. So give us a little peek behind the curtain, Your Excellency. What are we expecting on this trip? And I know certainly you and your wife will be accompanying the royal couple for some of it.
Well, we're delighted, Mercedes. This is their second visit here to Canada. Their first one in 2011, shortly after they were married. And of course, as you say, this time they're coming with those two marvelous little children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte. I think this will be continuing to make Canada a very special home. And when we greet them coming off the plane, we'll say, welcome back home to Canada, and thanks for bringing the two little ones.
And what are some of the big themes on this trip? The royal couple always has certain charities or emphasis they like to put.
Right.
We're hearing Indigenous, certainly hearing immigration as well, mental health. What are some of the big events that they're going to be involved in to try to support these meaningful causes? Well,
you've mentioned three that are close to their hearts, and they will be involved in activities that show the Canadian version of those events. I think the first would be visiting a magnificently beautiful part of the world, which is British Columbia and the Yukon, and seeing something of the outdoors and the spectacular nature of that scenery. Bringing their children with them, I think, adds to that. Certainly the notion of nature and the natural environment would be important. For example, we'll be visiting with them to Bella Bella, which is on the north coast of British Columbia, and they will be dedicating the Great Bear Rainforest Park, which is the largest temperate forest park in the world, and that will be also part of the Queen's Canopy cover for the Commonwealth, which was initiated in the Commonwealth meeting in May of 2015, where 53 Commonwealth countries said we will up our game in terms of protecting forest cover, and this is our contribution. So that will be a highlight. Certainly Indigenous peoples will be an important part of their visit, in the Yukon especially, in Bella Bella and in Haida Gwaii. Dealing with vulnerable families has been an important part of their life. The Duchess in particular is interested in women and children and families under distress. So their first visit in Vancouver on the second day will in fact be to the east side and to a shelter that's very important to my wife. She actually stayed a night in the shelter at Sheway, where young women who are addicted and are pregnant are brought in during their pregnancy to take their pregnancy through term, and then are helped to be able to keep their baby after the birth. And this is a very special part. There will be a major meeting with immigrants, especially Syrian refugees, and the welcoming in Vancouver, and then on to Bella Bella and on to the Yukon Territory for traditional gatherings there. Then they will be back to Victoria, and then they're in the Okanagan Valley at the university, and they'll be doing some tour of the vineyards. They'll be watching volleyball, a very prominent team from the University of British Columbia at Okanagan, then back to Victoria and Vancouver for the balance of the trip.
It sounds like an incredible trip. Certainly a lot of chances for Canadians to meet them. And I'm curious to know, you're in touch with Buckingham Palace, and you mentioned William and Kate's first trip after they were married was to Canada. This is the first trip for Princess Charlotte going abroad. Right. Is there a special relationship for the royals when it comes to Canada, in particular this royal couple, and how are they feeling about this tour?
Well, it's very clear that they have great admiration and love for Canada. As I say, when I greet them, I'll say, welcome home again. When they left us after their last visit, they say, we feel very much at home here. And because they're outdoorsy people and they're very engaged with young people, I think they feel the freshness of Canada is very, very attractive. There's a long tradition. Their grandmother has had over 20 visits to Canada, came here as a very young woman before she was queen. And this is a tradition that they're continuing. And I'm so delighted that the next generation are here, because we look forward to many, many years ahead where those visits will be repeated and they'll become closer and closer to Canada. But it's very clear they see this as a special part of the Commonwealth, and they're delighted to be with us.
Well, the last question's a bit of a tough one. People say, you know, these royal tours, they're expensive. Mm-hmm. Canada's its own country. What's the value of this kind of a connection to the Crown for Canadians?
Well, I think, first of all, it reinforces our constitutional monarchy, parliamentary democracy, a form of government that I think is very precious. It's evolved over 1,000 years, and it's evolved, it adjusts and changes for the circumstances. And I feel very proud that we have a form of government that works well for us. And I often say, you know, if you listed the 10 most attractive countries in the world in terms of governments that serve the people well and are stable over decades, on that list you would probably have the United Kingdom, you'd have Denmark, you'd have Norway, you'd have Sweden, you'd have the Netherlands, you'd have Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. What's common to those countries? They all have a constitutional monarchy. Vibrant democracies, but they work. So this is a reinforcement of that. I think it is also a welcoming of a new generation into that tradition with this young couple, and with Princess Kate, the Duchess, who's a commoner, and brings all of the vitality and the freshness that comes from her own upbringing and her own family into that dynamic.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Your Excellency. Have a great tour.
It'll be wonderful. Thanks, Mercedes.
And that's your week in Canadian politics. A great big thank you to all of our producers and crews for their hard work behind the scenes, and to you for sharing